Hi there and welcome to this week's Record Rangers podcast, brought to you by our sponsors at NordVPN. Never miss a moment of sporting action while protecting your data, no matter where you are in the world. I'm your host, Douglas Dickie, and I'm joined by Scott McDemott and Andy Newport, who, like everyone else, are probably still recovering from a rather dramatic Old Firm match on Sunday. A world first, lads. I think that's the first time Hearts have ever won an Old Firm game. And I would like to put on record my own personal congratulations to Hearts, who are almost certainly now going to win the SPFL title, but we'll come on to that in a moment. So, I mean, quite a game. Rangers magnificent in the first half, all over Celtic like a rash, and almost the complete opposite. Maybe not quite the second half, but after about 50 minutes, I thought Rangers actually started the second half okay, and then just seemed to fall out of it, get deeper and deeper. And Scott, that M word is getting asked again. Mentality. That's 4 draws in the last 6. This isn't a team that looks like they believe they can go on and win the league. How did you kind of see that second half performance?
To be honest, Douglas, I'm still kind of scratching my head trying to work it out, work out just why there was such a drop off in the level. For the last couple of days, I mean, I did Hotline Live post match. I was on again last night. We were discussing it, and I still can't really get to the bottom of, as I say, exactly why Rangers were so poor in the second half. I mean, they put it down to just pure fitness levels in terms of did they put so much into the first half in terms of intensity and pace and tempo that they just couldn't keep it up. As you say, they kind of commit the traps again in the second half and then immediately seem to drop off after 50 minutes and retreat and get deeper. Or as you say, is it pure mentality? I mean, this team, I was saying last night, I mean, you do need to remember this team is still pretty young and inexperienced. I think in Old Firm terms, you think some of the ages, guys making their debuts in this fixture, did that play a part in it? Could Danny Rohl have done more to sense that the momentum was shifting in the game and he could have done something about it? But ultimately, I think mentality is a worry. Danny Rohl's adamant that it's not. Andy's asked him about it. Probably we've both asked him about it in the last couple of weeks. And he's kind of upped by the suggestion that this team and this squad don't have a strong mindset. I think he sees the fact that they've got themselves back into the race as proof that they are strong mentally. But I'm sorry, I mean, in this city with these two clubs, until you've actually got the job done and you've got over the line, whether that's winning a league, winning a cup, then questions about mentality will always be there, especially with this squad. And I know the players have changed over the last few years, but it's been a recurring theme. You think 2 years ago, Philippe Clement's team got themselves in a really good position in the title race, threw it away unnecessarily, points dropped against the likes of Ross County, Dundee. You touched on it there. I mean, the recent record, I think is poor. I think they've only won 3 of the last 8 games, 12 draws this season. That's no title winning for them. And it looks like they've got to the run in. And again, and you could argue this probably happened in game on Sunday. Panic, anxiety set in, couldn't pass the ball anymore. I see that. I think the pass completion in the second half, 65%. I mean, that's terrible. I mean, that's 35% of your passes going to the opposition or going out the park. So, no, there's definitely questions to be asked, and they've left themselves with a mountain to climb. And if Danny Rohl thinks the mentality question is going to go away, it won't. And if they don't win this cup tie on Sunday, it'll ramp up again in the next few weeks.
And I think what's concerning from my point of view is, Rohl's success since he came in has been very much based on not conceding goals and then nicking 1 or 2 herself. And all of a sudden, that's 6 goals in the last 3 games. I didn't even feel like Celtic had to improve that much in the second half. I don't think they it wasn't like obviously it was a turnaround, but it was very much what we done. I think, with two guys up front who were occupying their central defenders. He then takes, one of them off and puts on Diamande. The switch that worked so well against, at Celtic Park. The complete opposite. The complete opposite effect on Sunday. And coming in the back of the Motherwell game was where Rohl was criticised for his game management. Fans are starting to maybe be a wee bit concerned with him. It's still relatively early days, although in recent Rangers, history actually is quite a long time. Do you think that's fair to be critical of Rohl?
Yeah, listen, I don't think there's any doubt that the game got away from Rangers at the weekend. I agree with Scott. I think fatigue set in. I think a lot of the players started to look really leggy. I don't know if they gassed themselves out with just how rampant they were in the first half. Maybe they've put so much into that first 45 that once you get back into the dressing room and the adrenaline sort of wears off. It's hard to get themselves going again for the second half. Obviously, we did have a good 5-minute spell. For me, they looked spooked by Hatate. I think there was a moment, obviously, Ture Romans has a chance at the back post. He doesn't take that. Celtic take a goal kick, try to work out for the back, and they'd really struggled to sort of play through Rangers' press in the first half. And there was a moment I think McGregor was on the ball, just sort of out to the left-hand side of the box, and he was struggling for options. And then Hatate just sort of dropped in, whipped this pass out to Rohl on the far side. And all of a sudden, Celtic were out of Rangers' press for the first time in the game. And at that moment, you could hear the anxiety, sort of the first seeds of anxiety planted in the minds of the Rangers fans. Like, the game's changed here. Hatate's an extra man in midfield. He was certainly a better option than what they had in the first half. I thought Aduma in the first half was absolutely anonymous. They moved Maeda through the middle, and that gave them a better platform to play off. And I think once that anxiety set in the minds of the fans, that tension, it spread into players, and it was never shifting from that moment. You could see from the way that the players, they lost all composure, they lost all ability to control the ball, to pass the ball, Scott says. And then, so I think from that sense, I can understand why Rohl made the changes he did, why he brought on Mohamed Diamande. I just don't think he was helped by the fact that when Diamande came on, he was as ragged as everybody else. You're really looking for, I think Daniel Rohl would be looking for somebody to come in and just offer a bit of control, put his foot in the ball, slow things down, and just allow Rangers just to re-establish a bit of control, but they never did. And then it was panic stations. And then anytime Celtic came forward, the roar that the fans had given them in the first half, that was gone. The place was eerily quiet at times in the second half. And I think it was just all to do with this anxiety. And it goes back to this, what we've spoken before, the lack of trust that the supporters have in this team. They are almost waiting for them to fail at times. I think that's what you saw in the second half.
I think it was summed up, for me, the penalty incident. Butland makes a great save. He then makes another great save, and yet Hatate gets a third bite of the cherry 1 yard out with a Rangers player anywhere near him. I mean, these guys should be busting a gut to get in the box here and get that ball clear.
Yeah, I think it's obviously it's Maeda. He's battling with, he's the closest guy, and he's actually come from 4 or 5 yards deeper than the rest of the Rangers defence. He's given himself a wee bit of
a runny.
So, listen, I think there's big question marks over the defence, as you were saying, as Scott was saying, like the defence was what Danny Rohl had built his early success on, just solidifying it. He's obviously changed the shape. This two-pronged attack, I think, is definitely getting the best out of the likes of Yusuf Chermiti, having Ryan Nadiri up alongside him to share some of the running with him. But I think it's obviously leaving spaces at the back. I think we'll have to discuss, Nico Raskin's ability to control the game. Chukwani, I thought, was excellent for the first half. I mean, I remember saying to Scott and just going how much bigger Rangers looked than Celtic in that first half, just in terms of the physicality. They just looked like they overpowered them. But I think they lacked the stamina to maintain that intensity, the tempo throughout the second half. And Yeah, I think defensively some real big issues. I mean, the goal that allows the set up at the back that allows Tierney to get in. Raskin doesn't respond. Fernandes doesn't move across. For the second goal, the instant leads to the penalty. Suter doesn't adjust his positioning either. It's been a mess all round, and I think that's something Rangers really need to look at before going into Sunday's game.
I think you made a great point, Douglas, at the start there. Danny Rohl, he obviously felt, and I think all the supporters felt as well, getting Rangers back into the title race and getting that kind of run of wins. It was like that's phase one kind of done. He'd sorted out we spoke about it on here. He'd got Rangers more organised, more structured, more defensively solid. Fernandes coming in helped that, having previously been at the team. And then it got to January, and Danny Rohl himself said it's now time for the second phase. He now wants to see more attacking play, more combination play, more attacking threat. And obviously, Nadiri comes in, Skov Olsen comes in, and I think everyone's thinking, right, this is it. This is phase two. The problem is, phase two has looked good in spells in terms of the attacking intent and the threat. And obviously, as Andy said, Shamiti getting these goals against Hearts and Celtic. But they've almost forgot how to defend it at the other end. The two in midfield is leaving them open, susceptible to counter-attacks, too much space. And just defensively in general, they're no solid. As Andy said, the defending for both of these goals is terrible. I don't know what Raskin's doing. Raskin to me just totally takes no responsibility at the back post. He's got Tierney, he's pretty much touch tight, and as the ball comes in, he decides to take a step back and just leave him with a header. And the lead up to the penalty, Andy's right. Suter again, he's got Maida, it's his man. He's touch tight with him, and the ball goes wide to James Forrest. And I just lack of awareness, just lets Maida drift off him into the centre of the 6-yard box. And I actually felt sorry for Dujon Sterling the more I watched it, because he's actually trying desperately to get in and cover Suter's man, try and help his mate out by defending against the header. So I think he's right. Defensively, there are problems. It's got to be tightened up again. And get back to my original point, as you say, Douglas, it's almost like with Rangers fans, I just preferred Rohl to keep going the way they were going, and maybe the football wasn't that great, but they were just chalking up wins. It wasn't great to watch, wasn't a lot of goals, but they were getting there. They were getting over the line in games. It feels like now they've moved on to this kind of next phase of 4-4-2 or 4-2-2-2, whatever you want to call it, where the strikers are getting a few more goals, looking a bit more threatening, but they're weak at the back again, and it's costing them big time in this running.
I suppose Danny Rohl's maybe been a victim of his own early success, because I think when he came in, the thought that Rangers could be in a title race was really fanciful, and now all of a sudden he's got us in the title race. But now that we're there, if you don't win it, it's been a failure when you get so close to Hearts without actually,
But listen, any Rangers, the absolute. I will say it was a long shot that they could win a title when he came in, but pretty quickly he bridged that gap. So at that point, the ambitions have to change. This is, this is Rangers are talking about. The new owners haven't come in. The fans aren't accepting. The new owners haven't come in to finish fourth potentially. The fans aren't accepting. Whatever it is, they spent 50-60 million this season to finish fourth. So yeah, he's got them back into a title race. And Danny Rohl keeps talking about things can change. Still a long way to go. All the teams will spill points. The thing is that Hearts and Celtic have been spilling points whilst Rangers have been picking them up, and then Rangers fail to take the opportunities that have been presented to them. And then this is, so how many more times is that going to be allowed to be the case? I think that's the concern, is that Hearts and Celtic might drop further points as the closer we get to May the 16th. But are Rangers really going to be able to take advantage? I think that is the way things are going. Clean sheets have disappeared. The failure to play full, for a full 90 minutes raises real concerns that this is a team that can go the distance. And I think, a lot now rests on Sunday's game, because if they lose that, then any sense of momentum will just vanish from the squad, and then I think you've got the fans will have a real concerns of a slog to the end of the season.
The problem is, Andy, and this might sound damning, but somebody said it to me the other day, and it's true. If Rangers lose on Sunday and have any more slip-ups in the league, as you say, potentially finishing fourth, even third or fourth in the league, ultimately the season will end as fans feared it would under Russell Martin. Yeah. You know what I mean? When Russell Martin was having an absolute nightmare and the season was unravelling very early, people actually thought, my God, this is going to be a horrendous season. Rangers are going to finish outside the top two and not win any trophies. Obviously, Danny Rohl, as you say, changed the ambition and the aspirations, not the job he did when he came in. But you're right, the owners in January recognised that Rangers were back in a title race and spent potentially about 15 million quid on 4 new players to get them over the line. I mean, those players weren't signed just to keep Rangers in a title race. They were the guys signed to be the difference makers and getting them over the line to win a title. The problem is, because of recent results, as I say, if they were to get the cup, if Rangers finish third or fourth under Danny Rohl and don't get a trophy, as I say, is there really that big a difference then for what was happening under Russell Martin? That's why, and I'm not saying there is. Listen, I think Danny Rohl's Rangers are completely different to Russell Martin's Rangers. I think there has been vast improvements in terms of the playing squad and obviously results when he came in. But I'm just saying that's the scrutiny that Danny Rohl's going to be under. I mean, let's be honest, it's all been pretty rosy for him so far in terms of results and positivity and people on side and fans singing his name and stuff. That's fine. But if it goes wrong on Sunday and Rangers don't get their act together in this running and put a run of wins together, I think he's going to face a lot of questions, a lot of pressure at the end of the season.
I think you're already seeing the first, and it's very small signs. It's not widespread in the support at all. But I think you are even just looking online after the game on Sunday and the days since. I think you're already starting to see one or two fans questioning Rohl, questioning his decision making, and questioning the future of the team underneath him. And listen, we've seen this scenario play out so many times, and I think this is where it's going to be crucial how the board deal with it, if that is how it pans out, because what was it John Bennett said, rinse and repeat. I think that's the danger if they allow this narrative to set in that Danny Rohl has failed or that he's not the man to take the team forward. I think there's been enough, as much as it would be hugely deflating and unacceptable, frankly, for Rangers to finish even anywhere beneath second, never mind allowing a Hearts team that haven't won a league in 60 years to beat them on a fraction of the spend that Rangers have put in. But I think you are seeing signs that the team are progressing under Danny Rohl, that they are going in the right direction. But okay, it's not been at this point. It doesn't look like it's been enough, and there's still 9 games to go in the league. But they're going to have to really go something to beat Hearts now. The points that they've spilled, but I think there are signs that they're heading in the right direction under Danny Rohl. But it's how they control the narrative that then surrounds them. Because if they do have a couple of more disappointing results, we've seen how the fans can react at times. We know that they can get frustrated and how that then boils over. We all thought that the new board coming in, they would be sort of immune to the sort of knee-jerk reactions that are sometimes are enforced on a board almost because of the sheer outrage of the fans. But then we saw at the beginning of the season, they sacked Russell Martin after what was it, 7 league games. I don't think there's any doubt that he had to go. I still think that was the right decision. But what I'm saying is that are they now? They've now felt the fury of the fans. Does it therefore make them a wee bit more susceptible to getting swayed, have their decision making swayed in the way that the old board certainly seemed to be pliable in that sense? I don't know. I mean, that's all very negative, and it's all what's and ifs and maybes. But I do think that there's whatever happens, the board are going to have to show some pretty strong leadership if they still feel that Danny Rohl's the guy to stick behind it.
Whatever happens, Danny Rohl will be in charge of Rangers at the start of next season. That's undoubted, right? And I don't think any would disagree that in Chukwueze, Romans and Nadiri, I think the 3 of them are all 22 years old, if I'm not mistaken. I think they all look like really good players, really, real upgrades on the squad. We think of the recruitment in the summer, how poor some of it was. I think there's been an improvement there, and those 3 players will all be good Rangers players. All I'm saying is, depending on how this season ends, there will be real pressure on the manager and the players at the start of next season. And I think there should be encouragement and positivity about what these players could go on and achieve, what Danny Rohl could go on and achieve at Rangers, because I think there's the potential there. As I say, you look at the profile of the squad, it's better in terms of age and potential for development. But as we know, ultimately it boils down to winning. And that's what I'm saying. That's why this season, even if they don't win the league, which now looks unlikely, they have to put up a proper challenge for it in this running. They need to try and obviously win the Scottish Cup, because we all know Scottish Cup final, last day of the season, it seems to kind of give clubs and teams a boost. I think the Scottish Cup would be massive now for Rangers, for this team, this relatively inexperienced team, if they could go and win the Scottish Cup, no matter what happens in the league. So it's vital, between now and May, what happens in terms of, as you say, Andy, the narrative and the kind of outlook on Danny Rohl and this team come the start of the season. And I was just going to ask Douglas, I mean, just on the game again on Sunday, what do you think Danny Rohl could have done differently in game? Because there's obviously been a lot of debate about the Diomande substitution. Personally, I think he was kind of caught in 2 minds, Danny Rohl, when he senses the game getting away from him a wee bit, Celtic getting top. To me, it felt like he didn't know whether to kind of almost increase their attacking intent and kind of try to get back to what they were doing in the first half, or to try and sit in and kind of keep what they had. And he puts Diomande on, and we all thought that was to shore up the midfield. And as you say, at Celtic Park in January, he put Diomande on and went to a kind of flat 3 in midfield, and they got control of the game. I felt the problem was on Sunday, Diomande came on and basically played just off Shamiti up front. He played far too far forward for me to get any control. And because he came on, he wasn't pressing the same way as Nadiri was pressing. Nadiri and Shamiti were kind of doing it in conjunction in the first half, and it was working a treat. Diomande came on and looked as if he didn't know whether to be sitting in midfield, supporting Shamiti, didn't know when to press, when to sit off. And the whole thing just got ragged and was a real mess. And I think, and whether Diomande was the right guy or no, I think when you sense a game like that is getting away from you and you know the importance of it, and you can see players getting a bit leggy, I think they had to try and go a bit more defensive, Rangers, and just try and be solid and compact and keep what they had. To me, they were giving Celtic far too much space, far too much opportunities to create and get chances, and ultimately it backfired. I don't know what you think you should have done, Douglas.
I think hindsight's a perfect science, but looking back on it, I mean, the thing is, I don't think no one in the crowd was really complaining at the Diomande substitution at the time. But then, like you say, Scott, he kind of came on and played in this kind of weird number 10 role. Yep. Whereas if he played, if he'd went with the 3 across, I think it might have shored things up. My issue with it was, even in the second half, I felt Celtic were really shaky at the back. I think their two central defenders never looked comfortable dealing with our two forwards, even in the early stage of the second half. By taking a striker off and leaving Chermiti up there himself, I think that handed even more initiative to Celtic. But again, you know, that's done with the benefit of hindsight. There was a few guys kind of breathing out their bum by the end as well. Whether we went kind of too hard in that first half, I don't know. There was a wee drop off before half time as well. What I would say is, you know, the talk at half time was very much, this game isn't done. You know, no one was kind of, you know, getting ready to celebrate yet. We knew there was going to be a response for Celtic. We knew O'Neill had obviously got their team wrong. We knew he would rectify that earlier. What we wanted to see was the team stay on the front foot, and in fairness, the first 5-6 minutes we actually did that. There was a wee moment. It's funny how, you know, we talk about wee moments that change games. Just before Celtic's goal, I think it was Chermiti, the ball in the middle of the park. He tries a really stupid wee flick, and it felt like at that moment it was, why are you doing it? This game isn't won. Don't be doing that in your own half.
That ended up leading to the first. That ended up leading to the first goal.
And then the funny thing is, by the time Celtic actually did equalise, I thought most of us thought we'd maybe weathered the storm a bit. It didn't feel like, for all the pressure, I don't remember Butland having many saves to make before the penalty.
Were you surprised Tavernier didn't come on at any could he have brought him on, went to a back five?
A bit of experience there, you know, and I think the general thing about Danny Rohl is, we think, you know, he's got to learn quickly. And it felt like he didn't learn for the Motherwell lesson. You know, he shut up shop against Motherwell and it cost us. He's tried to shut up shop against Celtic and it's cost us. He needs to learn. A more experienced manager. You know, the talk was very much, a Steven Gerrard team doesn't give a 2-goal lead away to Celtic with those same players. I don't think you can see a 2-goal lead.
I just thought the team lacked composure at times.
Yeah, they did.
Second half, and I thought, I look at the way that Bayrami, when he came on at Livingston last week, okay, it wasn't enough to get the victory, but I thought he added just a calmness in the final third at times.
He can hold the ball.
What Rangers needed it, and I remember sitting there on Sunday watching him warm up, and he kept looking at the bench as if he expected to be the guy that would come on and just keep the ball, but he never obviously gets the shout, and I think that was the change that Rangers needed with 10, 15 to go. They needed somebody to come on who just could sit in front of Raskin and demand the ball and keep hold of the ball. Now, obviously, they go for Gassama because we've seen the sort of impact he can make off the bench when the game gets a bit ragged and open, and there's open field to run into. They had a couple of moments, but again, he's on the right-hand side. We all know that that's not where you get the best out of Jedi Gassama. So, for me, that was maybe I can understand why Rohl went for it, but I think if you're going to put Gassama on, you have to swap Moore over to the other side and ask him to play in the left, or you have to bring on Bayrami and just keep hold of the ball and just retain possession.
As bizarre as
maybe Gassama a bit earlier than he did to just get that ball over the top to him. I thought, we could maybe have brought him on a bit earlier. Scov Olsen's been a bit of disappointment, in all honesty. I know he get an assist for the first goal, but let's be honest, that didn't have much to do with the assist and it didn't to do with the finish. So I thought Gassama even earlier might have been the move to try and get that ball over the top, get Celtic turning again towards their own goal.
As bizarre as it sounds, see me talk about composure and keeping the ball. I don't think Butland helped him in the second half either. His kicking at times was dreadful. And the amount of times he just lashed it up the pitch, literally straight to a Celtic player or at the park for a Celtic throw-in. And that's one of your most experienced players. That has to improve as well. I mean, that's to do with game management and sensing or getting a feel for a game. And that the crowd actually got annoyed with that as well, which just added to the whole anxiety. So even the goalkeeper's got a part to play in that, which might sound strange, but it's true.
I mean, I think obviously, we've kind of covered most of it. It seems such a shame that Chermiti's goal, both his goals actually, his second one was a quality, was a quality finish as well. His first one, obviously, one of the greatest goals I think you kind of see in the heat of an Old Firm battle. Are there any positives to take into next week?
I think if Rangers can summon that energy, that intensity they played with for the first 45 minutes and find a way to maintain it, then I think they'll be hard to beat. Listen, I don't think there's any doubt that Celtic are going to, certainly I'd be amazed if they go with and approaching that lineup next week. I'm right in thinking I think Trusty will be back in the defence. I think Chivinchara, if that's how you say it, I think he'll start up front. Adamu, just that I don't think you'll ever see him in a starting lineup again. I think that's the most ineffective performance of a Celtic striker I can remember in a long time at Ibrox. So I think Celtic will be stronger, but I think Rangers need to basically come out with the same approach that they had for the first 45 minutes. But then it's about keeping their calm, keeping their composure, and not getting spooked by moments when Celtic do have a bit of the ball, when Celtic do have some pressure. They just have to ride that out and go again, and keep the crowd on with them. I think what the trouble was, even as you're saying, Scott, is that there was moments. I mean, there was a moment when Raskin gets a ball in midfield and he just has to turn and go again, but he doesn't. He knocks the ball back to Fernandes. Fernandes knocks the ball back to Butland, and then Butland slashes one up the pitch. And a moment when the crowd was going to give them that fresh burst of energy, get frustrated, and the chance is gone. And it's those kind of things that just snowballed on Sunday. The moments to take advantage, they were frittered away, and it led to the frustration which then bled onto the pitch. So I think it's just about managing the game, but crucially managing their own emotions and the emotions in the stands. I think that's going to be the key to the weekend.
I think, listen, I'd be surprised if Celtic don't go, apart from Trusty coming in, I'd be surprised if Celtic don't go with a team that kind of started the second half on Sunday. Maida up top, Tuneke, and potentially Yang. I suppose his kind of place might be in doubt, but certainly with two wingers, McGregor, Hatate, Nigrin in midfield. They get so much joy in that second half. I'd be amazed. Depending on what happens Wednesday night, obviously at Aberdeen, but in terms of injuries, but I'd be amazed if they don't go with something like that. And Rangers-wise, I just wonder how Danny Rohl will approach it, because obviously, as we've touched on, defensively, it wasn't good enough. They lose control of the game in the second half. But the same token, the first half was so good, you don't really want to veer away from the two strikers playing up front. So, I mean, could they go? I think, just off the top of my head, I think now, if I was Danny Rohl, I'd maybe be looking at kind of 4-3-1-2. If you bring Diomande back in to play with Raskin, Chukwani, so there's no as many spaces in midfield, you can have Mikey Moore playing off the two strikers and giving them a bit of a free roll. I think the fullbacks are good enough. They can get up and down, so you've still got a bit of width there as well. Obviously, that means leaving Skov Olsen at the team, but after his performance at the weekend, I wouldn't have any qualms about that. Now, I don't think he's done enough to merit an automatic start. And as I say, I'd be really surprised if he doesn't look at a system like that. You keep the back four, the fullbacks can still get forward. You have a bit more security in midfield, hopefully a bit more control in there with an extra body. You let Mikey Moore run free, but you can keep your two strikers. At the moment, that to me would seem like a decent compromise for the kind of almost gung-ho 4-2-2-2 to what happened in the second half, and trying to ensure that doesn't happen. I don't know what you think.
I guess the worry is that what happened in the second half seeps in the start of the game on.
Psychologically, that's an issue.
We know Celtic are going to change their team or their starting 11, and we know they can't possibly. I can't imagine Celtic will be as bad in the first half on Sunday as they were on Sunday just past. But I'd like to hope that we won't be as bad as we were in the second half as well. So I think it's a real issue for Danny Rohl, because it feels a bit like he threw what he feels is your best team at it, and while it worked for 50 minutes, it didn't get us the result we need. So
the problem is, psychologically, Rangers are coming out of that game at the weekend. Rangers players are thinking, God, we battered them for 45 minutes and still couldn't Still couldn't beat them. No, at 2-0 up. So psychologically, there's no doubt Celtic will get into it, I think, in a more positive mindset, and I think that's why Rohl has to do something to ensure that doesn't happen. And as I say, I think that type of system might allow them to do that. I think it's important that they keep. I still think Rangers can overpower Celtic the way they did in the first half, just through sheer physicality and the two strikers being at it, and the fullbacks being at it. But they can't allow it to get away from them in midfield like they did at the weekend with just the two. So
I think. So I was going to say, I think if he wants to stick with that system that he started with on Sunday, I can imagine bringing in Bayrami. I mean, I know I mentioned him a minute ago. I'm just thinking, one of his big strengths off the ball is his ability to press. As much as Mikey Moore did a great work off the ball down the left-hand side, the two Romans and Chukwani on that side, they were really strong. I didn't think they were quite as strong on the right-hand side in terms of how Sklovolsson, not just on the ball, but he was really passive off the ball as well. Bayrami, I think, got in there. He's got the quality. He likes to play in that sort of 10 position, drift into the spaces. I can just imagine if they want to go with that, that's the small tweak that they can make that allows them to stick with that same approach and go with the same attitude they went with the weekend, and maybe get somebody that's a wee bit more effective on and off the ball than Sklovolsson has proven to be so far.
No Asgard, Andy, no Asgard in, no.
I don't see that one.
I've got to say, I would be stunned if Bayrami started on Sunday.
I know that Rohl likes him, and obviously
he never seems to play him.
He praised a few months back when he first came in, and obviously I think an injury sort of disrupted him, and he turned to him at Lumsden. I just got a funny feeling that could be the sort of thing that he would look at. I might be wrong, of course, but that's my hunch.
He must be getting inside info, Douglas.
I'll just be completely wrong. So judging by my
he says Bayrami will not even make a bench on Sunday.
Well, listen, it's an absolute huge game because it's looking increasingly like it's Rangers' best hope. Might be Celtic's best hope for a trophy as well, to be perfectly frank. I think the lesson I'm taking from Sunday is that neither team's really all that good. I don't think either team can be particularly pleased with their afternoon work. I think Celtic were a bit happier, obviously, with the result. But I look forward to surveying the wreckage of another epic next week, gents. Hopefully a bit easier on the nerves from my point of view. But listen, thanks very much. Thanks again to our sponsors at NordVPN. And enjoy your football in the midweek, boys. And catch you next week, hopefully.
Cheers, Douglas.
Cheers.